Last week was one of the most important teachings I have ever given. Ekev, on the heels of. And the week before that, the Torah portion before that, thank you. The Torah portion before that had this concept of listen to the mitzvot. And last week was based on this concept of listen to the mitzvot. And here it comes again. The very first thing we see in this Torah portion is that same concept. Re'eh, see. I'm placing before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you listen to the mitzvot. Not if you listen to God. Not if you listen to the still small voice. Right? If you listen to what? Mitzvot. Come on, guys, wake up. If you listen to what?
Mitzvot.
The mitzvot. So that's 3 weeks in a row that this concept has been throughout the Torah portion. So the reason I'm going to try to stay super focused because it's a very particular thing that came to me about this problem, this issue. There was a gentleman here last week who is in the army, and he's a believer. He's got a little bit of messianic background, and he loved the service, loved the teaching. Can't be here this week, but he sent me an email, and he was trying to wrestle this concept out of listening to what? It was very hard for him to get it. He was really trying, and he's still working on it. But it was very hard for him to get this concept down because all of us, everybody hearing me out in video land, everybody has heard this concept, and it's been drilled into us since we were children. Obey your father, obey God, everybody. And yet God never said that, not one single time, not once in the Old Testament or New Testament. So it's very difficult to get your head wrapped around this concept. So listen carefully. Here's the foundation. And you need to be able to say this. You need to be able to recite this. Say it like we say the prayers. If there's no commandments in the Bible, and God never asks us to obey, then what is all that stuff in the Old Testament? And you need to be able to ask that question. So I'm going to ask you that question. You're going to answer me. If there's no commandments, and God never asks us to obey, what is all that stuff in the Old Testament?
Instructions.
It is not instructions.
It's a yoke.
It is not a yoke.
There's stuff to learn from.
Thank you.
What'd she say?
She said, it's stuff to learn from.
Things that we're to do so we can learn.
Okay. Now, you said instruction, which is, the reason I said no is because nobody said it's pictures. So we're right back to square one after how many years? If there's no commandments, God never gave a command, and he never said obey anything, then what is all that stuff in the Old Testament?
Pictures.
Period. Now, if you can't say that very most basic foundational understanding, then number one, you don't know what Judaism is for, right? You think it's God telling us how to live. It is not God telling us how to live. It's God telling us what the heavens are like, and what Yeshua is like, and what God is like, and what the temple's like in heaven, and what heaven and the angels and all the demons in the spiritual world is like, and the kingdom is like. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole teaching. And yet, I ask you the very most basic question, and it doesn't come to you immediately. It takes you a little while for it to come. It does come. But it should be the very first thing out of your mouth and out of your head. Let's do it again. If there's no commandments, God never gave a commandment, and I'm going to add, he never gave instructions in how to live. If he never gave a commandment, and he never asked for obedience to anything, then what's all that stuff in the Old Testament?
Pictures.
Now, if that ain't the bottom line, then you don't know what the Judaism is for. That's what it's for. Okay, so what we're looking at is this. Listening to those pictures. Listening to the physical acts talk. So obviously, what do you have to do first? What's step one?
Listen.
No, that's step two.
Do.
Oh,
Thank you. Do them.
Do that.
Remember, we went over this last week? So step one is what?
Do. Doing.
Do them. Na'aseh. After you do it, then what do? You listen. V'nishama. Okay. So, that was in last week's Torah portion and the week before. So now we come to this week. Re'eh. And the very first thing God says in Re'eh is, Re'eh, look, I'm putting in front of you a blessing and a curse. The blessing, and look what he says.
You do it. Listen.
If you listen
To the
to
establishment.
the mitzvot, right, the establishments. Not the blessing if you do them. Not the blessing is if you obey me. Not the blessing if you listen to my voice, my still small voice, giving you instruction. My blessing if you listen to the mitzvot. And conversely, he says, the curse. If what?
Don't listen to it.
If you don't listen to them. Of course, that means if you don't do them, to listen to them. But if you don't listen to, you can do them. But that doesn't bring a curse, necessarily. It doesn't say the curse if you don't do them. It says the curse if you don't what?
Listen.
All right, so you do them, and then you say, okay, God, I listened. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Nope. No.
Like you do it and then you listen to what it's saying.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to be quizzing you the whole teaching. So get ready. Listen to me again.
Okay.
The blessing if you listen to the mitzvot. The curse if you don't listen to the mitzvot. Okay, I did the mitzvot. Okay, Lord, I listened. Is that right?
No, you
Why
have
is
to
that not
listen.
right?
Because you're not listening to the mitzvah itself.
Right, you're not listening to the mitzvot itself, the thing you did. Right. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I know this is hard to follow. Clearly. Clearly this is hard to follow. So, the curse comes if you don't listen to what you do. Not if you don't do it, if you don't listen to what you do. So you can do it all day long. And if you don't listen to what you did, what do you get?
No.
A curse. Yeah, not nothing. A curse. So I thought I had you there. So let's try one more time. Okay, follow what I'm saying. Say you do the mitzvah, and then it tells you some revelation about angels. And then you say to God, God, I listened. I heard you. Is that correct or no?
No.
Yes, it is. Because you listened to the mitzvot, right?
You learned about angels.
And
my
you learned
question
about
is,
angels,
What are
right?
you trying to tell me?
Right. Okay, let's try it a different way. You don't do Shabbat. And then you go into your prayer closet and you pray for 3 hours and you heard all this stuff about your life. Did you listen to the mitzvot?
No.
No. So what do you get?
Curse.
But you went and prayed for 3 hours in your prayer closet.
Doesn't matter.
That's not fair.
Do the mitzvah.
That's not fair. Okay, now this is exactly what happens in the heart and in the mind. And this is why people cannot figure this concept out. It's not fair. I did this for you, Lord. I prayed. I heard from you. You told me to turn left after 3 blocks, and I did it. And I get a curse?
We don't understand fair.
That's not fair. Right, we don't understand fair. So there's a lot of mental problems that come along with this concept because of what we've been taught. We have to tear down our prior learning and relearn. Okay, we have to tear down our prior misunderstandings and relearn. So let's read it one more time. Hopefully now the words make a little more sense. Look, see, I want you to look. I'm placing before you a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you what? If you what? No, not do.
Put attention.
The blessing, if you put attention and you listen to, say it out loud, I'm quizzing you, to the mitzvot. And conversely, I want you to see this. You get the curse if you don't what?
Listen.
To the mitzvot.
Listen to the mitzvot. Listen to what you do. Okay, I'm glad you get that you got to do. That's good. But it only benefits you if you listen to what you do. It only benefits you if you listen to the acts that you're doing. If you don't listen to the establishments of the Lord your God that I'm setting up for you today by following other gods which you have not known, it shall come about when the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, that you shall place the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. So they're about to enter into the land, right? Yes?
Yes.
They're right on the edge of the land. They're about to go into the land. And so he's gearing them up and giving them like this foundational stuff before they go into the land so they can live in the land properly. Now, 2 Torah portions ago was Ve'et Hanan, and it said, and you, Israel, Shema el hachukim ve'el hamishpatim. And you, Israel, listen or hear the statutes and the judgments, Gesund, which I'm teaching you to, oh, look, which I'm teaching you to do. Listen to it again. Listen to the statutes and the judgments that I'm teaching you to do. He doesn't say listen to the teaching, does he? Listen.
No.
He doesn't say listen to the instruction, right?
Right.
He says listen to the what? Statutes and judgments that I'm going to teach you how to do. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So the instruction is how to do it. The instruction is how to do it. And then once you do it, what do?
Listen.
Really, I need to hear everybody. After you do it, what do? Listen to it. Listen to it. All right? Which I'm teaching you to do so that you may live, and go in and take possession of the land. So what does he say to do in order to go into the land and take possession of it? Listen to the mitzvot that you're going to do. So you can go into the land and take the land. Make sense? Does that make sense?
Yep.
At least shake your head or something.
I answered
It
in
looks
the
like you're
positive.
barely wiggling your head.
I'm refraining from asking a question.
I'm asking you a question right now. Do you understand it first?
Yes, I do understand.
Okay. Okay. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. That's fine. That's fine. We're going to do things one at a time because this is difficult to get through. It's difficult to understand, obviously. Clearly, it's hard to understand. So, in order to go in and take the possession of the land, you listen to what? Statutes and judgments. All right, Devarim 5. Shema Yisrael et hachukim ve'et hamishpatim. Listen, O Israel, to the statutes and judgments I'm speaking today in your ears, that you may, what?
You may learn.
Them and do them. The learning is not after you do it. The learning is before you do it. You got to learn how to do it. You guys know how to tithe?
No.
You got to learn how to do it.
How to what?
Tithe. You know how to tithe?
Is there a difference in tithing?
No, you do not.
I probably don't.
There's about 412 laws in Judaism on how to tithe. I'm going to ask you again. Do you know how to tithe?
No.
No. You got to learn it. You got to learn it. Be taught by your rabbi. Once you learn it and then you do it, then what do? Then you listen to it. Okay. Listen, Shema Yisrael, to the statutes and the judgments I'm telling you today in your ears, so you can learn them and do them. All right. Last week's Torah portion, Ekev. It will be on the heels of you listening to the judgments, not on the heels of you listening to me and obeying me and doing them. Listening to them. On the heels of you listening to them, to the Mishpatim. And keep and do them, that the Lord your God will keep his covenant with you and his faithfulness that he swore to your forefathers, and he'll love you and bless you and make you numerous, and he'll also hello?
Bless you.
Don't do that, please. He'll also what?
Bless us.
Okay, this is this is what I'm going to talk about today. This is what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to try my best to parse this out so it makes sense. The name of the teaching is, should we seek the blessing? Should we seek after the blessing? All right. Now he says here in last week's Torah portion, Ekev, it will be, as you listen to the mitzvot, he will bless you. Now also in last week's Torah portion, it will be, if you listen with hearing to my mitzvot that I'm setting up for you today, to love the Lord, to serve him with all your heart, all your soul, then I'll give you the rain of the land in its time. God defines that as part of the blessing, by the way. The early rain and the latter rain, and you will gather in your grain, your wine, your oil. Those are part of what God defines as the blessing in the land. The blessing in the land. Not just the blessing in the land. Okay? That's last week's Torah portion. And now this week's Torah portion. The blessing if you listen to the mitzvot. The curse if you don't listen to the mitzvot. And this is why I keep going over this. Not these three. Because this is where everybody's mind goes. Not if you'll listen to me to do the mitzvot. That's obedience. Right? You shall wear tzitzit. Yes, sir, I will do it. That's what this first one is. Listen to me to do it. That is not what it's saying. Not if you will listen to God tell you to do the mitzvot. The word of God says, you shall wear tzitzit. And therefore, you obey. So you're back to that again. And you wear tzitzit. It's not that. And not if you listen to the mitzvot, I'm telling you, and then do them. That's not it. That's obedience. All of these are obedience. All three of them. The mind works in one way for everybody. Because we're raised by adults when we're babies, when we're children. And children pee on themselves, and they walk into walls, and they can't tie their own shoes, and they can't finish a sentence, and they do 4 things at once, and they fall off buildings, and it's just chaos. They're babies. And then they have an adult come and say, don't touch that. Okay. That's obedience. Right? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Look, what else can a kid do? I told you to make your bed. Yes, sir. And you go make your bed. That's obedience. And we're raised like that from the time we're babies. And then we get born again. We come to God our Father. And we open up this book. And it says, thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. And so what do? Yes, Daddy. And we're back to square one. Did we get to know our Father by doing what He said? Do we get to know Him by going, yes, Daddy, I'll go make my bed? Do we get to know Him? When we're kids, did we get to know our Father because we ate our vegetables because He yelled at us and told us to eat our vegetables? Or our mommy, whichever. Did we? Did we get to know them? Did we get to know their heart, their motivation, their thoughts? Did we? No, absolutely not. All we did was obey. And then maybe later on we found out, oh, they were right. That is not listening to the act that they asked us to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not listening to the act itself. Now we're grown up. And now Israel has grown up. And He's telling them, before you go in that land, listen to the stuff I'm going to instruct you to do. Here's how you do it. Don't go like this. Yes, Lord, I shall do as thou sayest. Don't do that. Do it. Now listen to it when you go in the land. It's a completely different way to think. Okay. Hopefully I have established that pretty well. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you asked a question, and I think you left it unanswered. Do you know which question
No.
I'm asking? Okay, you said, do we seek the blessing?
Okay, I'm going to get back to that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. That's the segue. So, title of the title of the teaching is, should we seek the blessing? Should we seek the blessing?
She's giving you so much eye contact
I know.
today.
I know. Should we do the mitzvot?
Yes.
Yes.
After we do the mitzvot, should we ask God what it means?
Yes.
If you don't understand.
Not really. What should we do? Listen. You're not finishing your sentence. Listen to it. We do it. We listen to it. It talks to us. If we don't understand what the heck it's saying, then we say, God, what does this mean? And He'll tell us. Because He's nice. But you got to listen to it first. So God says, if you listen to that Jewish thing talk, what will come to you? What? The blessing. And if you don't listen to that Jewish thing talk, what comes to you? Right. Now, I may be wrong, and I want to say this before we look at these two quotes. In my opinion, and I say this because I lived it, there are tens, probably hundreds of thousands of believers who are doing Jewish things that are taking on themselves the halil. Let me get to the word. Kalala. Sorry. Kalala. That's how you say the curse. Say kalala. Kalala. That's the curse. In my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm sure you disagree, but I'm speaking from 43 years of experience that there are probably hundreds of thousands of believers who are doing Jewish stuff in one form, on one level or another, that are taking on themselves the kalala, the curse. Why? Because they're not listening to it. They say, I listened to God, God said to do it, so I'm doing it, and praise God, I'm getting to know Him. But they're not. They're not. Their life may be better. They may be having all kinds of wonderful things in their life now because they're doing Jewish stuff. But that doesn't mean they're getting the blessing. They're getting the curse. Now in the New Testament, there's a bunch of verses, I'm not going to go into it too much right now, that say we're not under the curse of the law. This is what it's talking about. It's doing Judaism without listening to it. Preach to you, talk to you, sing to you. That's the curse. That's the curse of the law. And if you talk to all these believers, well-meaning believers that I love Messianic Jews. I grew up with them. They're my people. I love them. But in my opinion, they're taking on themselves a curse. Because if you say to them, did you keep Sukkot this year? Oh, yes, I did. What did it say to you? Oh, it was so fantastic. We worshiped the Lord. We enjoyed it. We all had a great time. The Lord blessed. What did it say to you? It was fantastic. The Lord blessed. Okay, great. What did it say to you? And you're on a merry-go-round, going around and around and around and around, and you never get anywhere. But you had a good time. So, I believe that's what's being referred to. That's the curse of the law. So, we have a problem. We have Judaism on one side that's under the curse of the law because they say obey the commandments. And then we have the believers on the other side that are under the curse of the law because they say get rid of Judaism. So therefore, they can't do it to listen to it. All right, so we're stuck in the middle. And I know I'm putting you in a bad position. I know that. But I want you to know that people write to me and call me from out of town, never in town, from out of town saying, Rabbi, thank you so much. I finally get it. It's so that is so encouraging to me.
So the mitzvot is not always immediate that you can listen to it, right? If you keep doing it and doing it and doing it and finally, oh, now I see what I need to see.
That's a very good question, Robert. The question is this. So, say you're doing the mitzvot, it doesn't mean you're going to hear it on the first chance, right? You're not going to hear it the first time out.
Might take a while.
Wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Really?
Here's the problem. We don't listen the first time. It's not that we can't hear it. It's that we don't listen. Look, I'm a school teacher now. I'm teaching little babies, okay? I'm teaching elementary. They're even worse than the middle schoolers. And they don't listen to anything. I say something crisp, simple, clear, so that if anybody wants to hear, they can understand. I break it down into tiny, tiny little bites so that it's impossible to avoid. And what do? Wait. Why are you asking me what? Oh, because she was talking to me. Oh, because I was thinking about my mommy. So it's not that we can't hear it the first time. It's that we don't listen the first time. We have to, everybody's different. I mean, some people listen faster than others. But the truth is, if we want to, we can hear it first time out. If we want to. But that means you got to have your eyes and ears open. Make sense? It's up to us. All of this is up to us. Every bit of it. Every bit of it.
Well, we're not taught how to listen to doing things.
No, we are not taught how to listen to doing things. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
A lot of times we can listen as best we know how, but we're still not hearing anything.
That is correct. It's all about the culture we live in enculturation, which I'm about to talk about. Yes?
In previous teachings, you talked about the pruning and the sap crushing through, doing the mitzvot and hearing from the mitzvot. Is that the pruning process, and then get the
Forget
sap
pruning.
preparing it?
Don't worry about pruning
So
right
not
now.
related?
Nope, let's just stay focused on these little bite-sized chunks I'm trying to give you. Okay, let's try to stay focused. Now, Doug just said this. He said, we're not taught how to listen to what we do. Now, in Judaism, this is called something. It's called a considered life. That's what Jews call it. Do you live a considered life? It's called in Hebrew, Cheshbon HaNefesh. And we're coming up to Elul on Thursday. On Wednesday night is the new moon of Elul, when we start doing Cheshbon HaNefesh for 40 days. That's a considered life. That means you think about what you're doing. You don't act and just veg out. You act and you think about your acts. That's a considered life. Now, in both Judaism and Christianity, the culture it's bent to make people to like a corral, to force the sheep into one little area, and that is the curse of the law. So that you don't have to think about what you're doing. The whole culture is built that way in Christianity and Judaism. Do it. Obey. Get in that corral. Just do it. Just do it. You're obeying God. God's going to be happy with you. Just do it. The whole culture's like that. And so we're not taught to live a considered life. Absolutely right. So I've got Jew statement and Christian statement. They both basically say the same thing. Yes, sir.
Can you say that term again? That Heshbon something?
Cheshbon. Say it.
Heshbon?
Cheshbon
Heshbon?
HaNefesh. HaNefesh.
Repairing the soul.
Yeah.
No, that's Tikkun HaNefesh.
Oh.
Cheshbon means examination
Oh, that's right.
of the soul, which means a considered
Could
act.
the transliterated spelling be Hebon space H?
No, Heshbon. Heshbon. HaNefesh. Nefesh. All right. Here's the Jew statement. And remember, I'm asking you this question. Should we seek the blessing? Should we seek the blessing? The Parsha says this. The Parsha states, observe that I have placed before you today a blessing and a curse. Now, this was on a video from, I don't have it here, from Temple Institute,
Oh,
which is usually this very wonderful, mild guy, the Rabbi Richmond from Temple Institute. But this is a different guy who's teaching for him, I guess. And this is how he says it. The Parsha states, observe that I have placed before you today a blessing and a curse. It then clarifies a little of what this blessing and curse actually are. And I'm like, oh, good. It tells me what the curse is and the blessing is. The blessing, it says, is if you obey the commandments of Hashem your God. Is that what it said?
no,
What did it say?
if you listen to it.
What did it say?
Listen.
If you listen to the mitzvot, not if you obey them. The word is Shema. If you obey the commandments of Hashem your God, which are about to be restated in the rest of this parsha and in the next few parshas. The curse is if you don't obey those commandments. Is that true?
Nope.
No. What's the truth? If you don't listen to the mitzvot and go astray from the path being commanded. This is what the blessing and the curse are all about. This is what the blessing and the curse are all about. Get in that corral. Get in that funnel and get tight where everybody else is doing the same thing. Enculturate yourself into the culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is what the blessing and the curse are all about. The purpose of the commandments are summed up in these very few first verses. Keep the commandments and there will be a blessing. You ask any Messianic Jew and they will agree with that statement. Any Messianic Jew. Any Messianic Jew. One that's observant, one that doesn't care, and eats pork every day and does Christmas and Easter, but they're Messianic Jews. They will agree with that statement.
Even non-Messianic Jews.
Well, I'm talking about Messianic Jews. Keep the commandments and there will be a blessing. Not true. Keep the mitzvot and then listen to it, and it will be habracha, the blessing. Don't keep them, and there will be a curse. Is that true? Don't keep them, and there will be a curse.
Don't listen.
Right, don't listen to them. Well, this is closer to the truth. Don't keep them. If you don't keep them, you can't listen to them, right? So this is at least step one in the right direction.
But it's not the whole truth.
It's not the whole truth, right? Don't keep them, and there will be a curse. All right, so that's half true. Now, the Christian side, which you're more familiar with. The key to understanding the relationship between the Christian and the law is knowing that the Old Testament law was given to the nation of Israel, not to Christians. Some of the laws were to reveal to the Israelites how to obey and how to please God. Get a pat on the tuchus, and a pat on the head, and a gold star, and a brownie point, and whatever trite phrase you can think of, which is exactly what Christians live.
Snowflakes?
Nah, not really. They want to please their daddy. Like I said, go clean your room. Yes, Daddy. I want you to be happy with me. Everybody's still like that. Never grew up. You know, the whole culture is like this. Can't fault anybody. Some of the laws would reveal to the Israelites how to obey and please Daddy, like the 10 Commandments. Some laws were to show the Israelites how to worship God and atone for sin. The sacrificial system, that's what that was given for. Some laws were intended to make the Israelites distinct from other nations. Food and clothing laws makes them different. There's no reason for it, but it makes them different.
Right.
None of the Old Testament law is binding on Christians today. None of the Old Testament law is binding on Christians today. None of the Old Testament law is binding on Christians today.
The lawless.
The next paragraph says, now, just because Christ did away with the law doesn't mean that we don't read the Old Testament and appreciate it and follow some of it. What?
Right.
You just told me none of it's for today, for the Christian.
Well, except for tithing.
No, not except for tithing. You're wrong. There's about 15 things that they follow.
Yeah.
But in this paragraph, it says none of it. And by the way, the next paragraph, you know what it says? James says if you follow one part of the Torah, you have to follow all of the Torah. So all of it is done away with, except for the ones that we want to do.
Right.
I don't know.
Just make a statement.
Go ahead.
It kind of blows my mind because if you ever noticed, you buy a Bible and then at the top it kind of gives you a title of what's on the
Right, all the Bibles
page.
that are put in by, I mean, the titles that are put in by the editors in the Bible.
So here in the Old Testament, specific, you know, the whole thing, and at the top it should be say God, you know, God tells the Israelites and stuff. But now with replacement theology, in some Bibles you'll look at the top and it'll say Christians. It'll say to the church. is
To the
what it says.
church.
To the church is what it says.
Some of them
The
do
church.
say Christians. Some
But
of them
it's
do.
like-
Right.
It's like, you know, you want it, but you don't want it. It's just
Well, I like
selective theology.
it's selective, and the best way I can think of it is a merry-go-round. It just goes around and around in a circle. It never gets to a point. You can't say step A, step B, step C, step D. I get it. It's just you go around and around where you end up where you start. None of it. You don't have to do any of it because Christ did away with the law. James says if you do one part of the law, you got to do all of it. None of it applies to us. Now, that doesn't mean that all of it doesn't apply to us. You know, there are ones that we appreciate. It's just, it's totally contradictory. It's a merry-go-round. Is your hand up?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what part of James that's being quoted?
I think it's chapter 1, but I may be wrong. Okay, let me finish this. None of the Old Testament Torah is binding on Christians today. When Jesus died on the cross, he put an end to the Old Testament law. And then he gives Romans 10:4, which says Messiah is the target of the Torah. That's what it says. Telos, target. Then it mistranslates Galatians 3 about the tutor, that Judaism is a tutor to lead you to understand Messiah. And then he gives you Ephesians 2:15, and it mistranslates it from saying that Messiah is inviting Gentiles into Judaism to Messiah did away with the curse. Did away with the law. These are all not even close to what they say. So, 2:10. Jacob 2:10. Thank you, Doug. Okay. Now, I have this book, Obedience or Understanding. It tries to make this concept understandable. It's hard to get through. It's hard to understand. But I was really thinking about this yesterday. And here's what I came to. The reason this is so hard is because we want to hear God talk to us about our life. Don't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't we want direction? Don't we want to know what he thinks about us, about our life, where we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to marry, what we're supposed to say, what we're supposed to do? Don't you want to hear God for yourself? Yes or no?
Most of the time,
Okay.
to be honest.
That's what the church teaches. How to hear God for you. Because it's all about me. It's all about me. And I want to hear God for me, about me, and my life, and I want direction, and I want gimme, 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 gimme. Tell me about me. It's not knowing about the Father. Does that make sense? This is totally different thinking. The thinking here is, God, tell me about your world. I want to hang out with you and find out about how you think about stuff. What do you like? What turns you on? Not what turns me on. What turns you on? How do you think about stuff, God? What do you think about this situation? And why? Why do you think that way about it? That's getting to know your Father. And we don't do that. We're so busy drowning in the details of our own life. I'm giving it, I got a million examples, but I'll give you one. I told you this before. I took a trip with Eileen out into the desert in Phoenix, and God clearly spoke to me. Take 2 water bottles. Why did he say that to me? Because I was asking him about my trip with my wife and what's going to happen with my car and my trip and my wife and my life and what's going to happen when I get there in my life. Are they going to buy my stuff? Are you going to bless me? And so he told me, take 2 water bottles. I never bothered to say, what does that mean? Because I didn't care. All I cared was that he was talking to me about my life. And so I took 2 water bottles, never used them, never looked at them, just wasted in the back of the car. And then at the end of the trip, I finally wised up and said, what was that about, God? I know I heard you. You're the water. Yeah, I obeyed him. That's right. That's exactly right. And then he said, the 2 water bottles is you and Eileen. Why didn't you ask me? All I had to do was hang out with him for a while and ask him. And he would have told me all kinds of cool stuff, but I didn't. Now, that's just about my life. That's on a really, really, really low level. Listen to what I'm saying. It's a low level to hear God about our life. Any idiot can do that. Give me an example from the Bible about an idiot, a horrible jerk who heard God very clearly. Just give me one example. There's a bunch of them.
Paul or Saul.
Saul. Okay. What else?
I'm gonna say Joseph, but it's subjective. as
No,
to
not
what-
Joseph. No, he's a good guy.
Jonah.
Jonah. Good one. He heard God over and over and over, didn't he? And he was a real jerk. What else?
Well,
Didn't even think it. Balaam. Yes, I thought about him.
King Saul.
King Saul. Absolutely. Who else? Yeah, anybody hear of the guy named King David?
I was about to get that. I was like,
Oh, he was an idiot, man. He was a murderous jerk. Adulterous, murderous idiot. He heard God really
With a
clearly.
heart after God.
With a heart after God. That's right.
That's supposed to give us hope, yeah?
It's a very, very low level to hear God about your life. I mean, I could tell you a million stories from just people in the congregation. And they're so happy they heard God about their life. I understand, God, you're with me. I know you love me now because I heard something about my life. Who cares? I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. It's important. We need to hear God about our life. We do. It is important. But it's a very low level. What God wants is for us to hear about Him. Him. What makes Him happy? What turns Him on? Why did He do what He did? That's what turns Him on. And so He says, do the Jewish stuff. It'll talk to about what? Me. He says, it'll talk to you about me. Not about you, about me, He says. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, that's a totally different way to live.
From what you said before is that the only thing that's really a blessing is knowing God.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there. So, we can do the mitzvot, listen to it, and it leads to what? Leads to what?
Blessing.
Leads to what? Say it out loud. It leads to what?
Blessing.
The blessing. We can hear God talk about God, not about us. And that gives us da'at la'adonai, the knowledge of God.
What is the blessing?
What is what?
The blessing.
In Hebrew, habracha. Ha-bracha. B-R-A-C-H-A.
Oh,
H.
Oh,
Habracha.
that's the blessing.
Listen to me again. That's the blessing. That's the blessing. He says, look, see, if you'll get the blessing if you what?
Do and listen.
If you what?
Do and
Listen to the mitzvah. You got to put that last part. You can't just say listen. Listen to what? Listen to the words of Christ in red. We're back to that again. Listen to the still small voice. You'll get the blessing if you listen what?
To the mitzvah.
To say it together. Look, I know I'm drilling this in, but I have to because I quizzed you at the beginning. You didn't remember. So I'm going to get you to remember today. I'm a good teacher. I'm good at this. So he says, I'll give you habracha, the blessing, if you
Do and
listen
listen.
to the mitzvot. Got to say that last part. And the curse if you don't to the mitzvot. All right. So the blessing is da'at la'adonai, the knowledge of God. That's the blessing. Well, that ain't the blessing to the church,
Correct.
is it?
No.
Yeah.
No. The blessing to the church is the stuff.
Or getting to
The
heaven.
stuff. Getting to heaven, and then on earth, the stuff. I want to be blessed. I want to have money. I want to have health. I want to have children. I want to have happiness. I want to have a good wife. I want to have a happy life. I want a lack of trouble. I want a good car. I want a good house. I want to, just normal. That's stuff. Isn't it? Isn't that stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We gotta have stuff. Everybody needs money and stuff. But people, what do they say? Oh, he's blessed. Why? Because he got stuff. He's not blessed. Why? He ain't got no stuff. That's how everybody thinks. Jews think like that, Gentiles think like that. Everybody. Because you read in these passages from last week and this week, and they'll say, I will give you the blessings of the barn and your field and the grain and the new wine and the oil. What, agriculture, money, stuff.
Yeah.
And so people read it and they go, hey, that's the blessing. But it's not. The blessing is knowing God. You can have both. You should have both. But that's not the blessing. That's
You call it the byproduct.
the byproduct. Exactly right. It's the byproduct. Seek first, finish the phrase. The kingdom and all this what?
All these things.
Stuff. Right? All the stuff will be added to you. The stuff. That's what people want. They want the stuff. Which is normal. I don't fault anybody for it. But if you want the stuff, get the blessing. And you'll get the byproduct. The stuff. Yeah? So, I think, I might be wrong, but in my opinion, you guys are going to have to change your prayers. Figure out what God wants. Figure out what God thinks. Figure out what God's up to. Figure out what turns him on. Figure out what he thinks. Not about you. About him. That's a change of prayer. We should also pray for our life and everybody else, which is fine. But that's a low-level prayer. The high-level prayer is knowing God.
Not a single one of the daily morning prayers in the Jewish book are gimme.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much for saying that.
You said what?
Well, I'm going to repeat it. Doug said not a single one of the morning prayers is gimme anything.
In the daily
It's
book,
bless you, Lord,
right.
for giving the rooster the understanding between day and night. Bless you, Lord, for opening the eyes of the blind. Bless you, Lord, for strengthening the below. Bless you, Lord, etc., etc., etc. None of them are give me this, give me that.
But one of it is thank you.
It's not give me.
Right, but it's thank you for what you have given me.
Yes, it's thank you for what you have given me. But that's different from asking for stuff.
Very different.
It's different. Number two.
So, Rabbi, the knowledge of
Not
God,
number two. Hold on.
I've noted that when things are going bad, the knowledge of God, when you learn something, it seems to carry you over through those bad things. Because sometimes we use good stuff and not having the good stuff.
Okay, let me get that on tape. That's good.
As a measure.
Wait, let me get that on tape, Robert, before I forget. When we're going through bad times,
Yeah. When,
it's the knowledge of God that gets us through that bad time, not the stuff.
right.
That's what you're saying,
Sometimes
yeah.
we focus on the bad stuff that's happening as a measure of
Blessing.
whether we're on the right track or
Yes, we look at the bad stuff as a measure of whether we're on the right track. But the way I say it is if we're being blessed. If we're looking, we look at the bad stuff in our life and go, oh, I'm not being blessed. Well, do you have the knowledge of God? Then you're being blessed. If you do not have the knowledge of God and you're going through that junk, you're right. It's just bad stuff happening to you. It's not teaching you anything. You're not learning about what God says to you about Him. Not about you, about Him. Do you understand? You follow what I'm saying? I know it's a different way to think. Number two, anyone can hear God's voice about our life. Personal things, direction, instruction. But this gives no understanding of who God is and how He is. None. It just makes us happy. And we go, oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Okay, what'd you find out about your daddy? Nothing. But I'm blessed. So, in the Bible, these are things that are blessings from God. Like he'll say, this is a blessing. Abraham's seed, the tribes of Israel, the sun and the moon and the dew, that was to Joseph. Health, that's in Exodus, says if you listen to the mitzvot, I won't put any of these diseases that I put on the Egyptians on you. Health. The rain at the right time, that's about money. You know, if it rains, you get crops, you get money. Agriculture, all the agricultural stuff that he says is a blessing. He'll give rain, he'll give dew, he'll give you harvest, he'll make that stuff grow. You make money. It's money. Every endeavor in your life, business, farms, etc., your family, your businesses, whatever you do for a living, that's about money. Those are things that God says, I'll bless that, and you'll be blessed. This is why people say, hey, see that guy's got a lot of money? He's blessed. It's true. But it's not the blessing. It's just a blessing. Children and grandchildren are a blessing from the Lord. So that's the blessing? No. The blessing is knowing God. So there are two different ways to think about blessing. So what's the real blessing from God? Knowing God. Our God, 2 Chronicles says, our God, didn't you drive out the inhabitants of this land from your people Israel and give it to the seed of your friend Abraham forever? So if you're friends with somebody, what does that mean? What does that mean that you're friends with them?
Abraham.
What does that mean if you're friends with somebody? Anybody?
You know them.
You know them.
You care about them.
You care about them. What else? When you say you know them, what do you mean? What do you mean?
You
What's a
understand
friend?
how they think,
What do you know about them?
what's important to them, how they think.
What's important to them? How they think? How they feel? Yeah.
You even,
Depends
because
really
when
what-
friends, just like family members, are exposed to each other frequent enough, they begin to mimic each other.
Yeah,
their
they begin
patterns.
to, friends start acting like each other, talking like each other, behaving like each other.
Which is what God wants.
Yes. So, he says that about Abraham with God? Abraham was a gazillionaire. He was blessed. But did he have the blessing, knowing God?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because he was God's friend. Now, who else does it say was God's friend in the Bible?
Remember-
Anybody?
Moses?
Nope. Never says that about Moses.
No
remember-
one.
Was it the guy he took with him?
Nope. Enoch or Elijah.
No,
The one that walked with him and never
That was
died?
Enoch.
Okay.
Nope. Never said that about Enoch. Says he walked with God and he was not, for God took him.
David?
David never says that about David.
Can remember.
Adam.
Never says that about Adam.
Elijah?
Never says it about Eliyahu.
Okay, just tell us, please.
Okay, Chris said it.
Nobody.
Nobody. It's the only person in the whole Bible that God calls my friend.
Right.
Man, that is trippy. And he was a Jew, right?
No.
No, he was a Gentile. Right. And he's called Abraham my friend. That means he knew God. He knew what God felt. He knew about the kingdom. He knew about heaven. He knew about Yeshua. He knew about the Jews. He knew about the whole history of the Jews. He knew about what the kingdom was going to be like. He knew about how many angels there were and what they were like and how they were divided. He knew all the heavenly stuff because he hung out with his buddy and he talked to him about it. And his buddy talked to him. God, his buddy talked to him about it. And how did he talk to him? That's the key. Ekev,
Okay. How?
listening to the mitzvot. So what does that mean Abraham did?
He did
Didn't
have
we listen?
He did. What did he do?
The
The
mitzvah.
mitzvot. Okay.
All of Judaism.
Right. Isaiah 41. But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I've chosen, descendant of Avraham, my friend. Jacob 2. That's James. If you want to know. Jacob 2:23, and the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called my buddy, the friend of God, God's buddy. Maybe you don't want to be God's buddy. That's fine. I used to shoot for that. Now I'm just trying to survive. Really, I used to shoot for that. I used to read that. I would get so jealous. I'd get so jealous. God, I want you to talk to me. But I wasn't saying talk to me about you. I was saying talk to me about whatever. And it was usually about me, about my life. However, this is what Elihu said about Job. So I don't know if it's true or not, because Elihu was a jerk, and he wasn't very nice, and he was better than the other three friends, but he was still a jerk, and he was not nice to Job. So I don't know how true this is, but this is what Elihu said about Job. Job has said, I'm righteous, but God has taken away my right. My wound is incurable. There's no fix for this. But I'm without wrongdoing. I didn't do anything wrong to deserve all this. For he has said, Job has said, it's of no use to a man when he becomes friends with God. Now, the reason I am including this is because I want you to know this. If, and it's a big if you choose to do Judaism, and if you choose to listen to Judaism, you will get the blessing, which is to know God. But along with that comes your life falling apart. And it's exactly what you said, Robert. God will bring you into bad stuff so you can get to know him. And the getting to know him will carry you through, not the blessings in your life. Just, here's some money. I'll throw some money at you to fix the problem. What did you learn from that? Nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe Job said this. It doesn't do any good to be friends with God. What good does it do me? Maybe he said that, maybe he didn't. But I want to put that in as a warning. It's a warning. Don't expect, if you do Judaism, for you to be like Christians. It's not going to happen. God's going to get closer and closer to you if you want. If you listen to the Mitzvot, he's going to get closer and closer to you. But that means he has to do stuff to us to make things hard. Let me give you an example. Amazing miracle. The Jews are in the wilderness for 38 and a half years, right? They're in the wilderness for 38 and a half years, and what do they eat?
Manna.
Magical bread from heaven for almost 40 years.
Tastes like whatever they want.
That tastes like whatever they want, right? It's a miracle, yes? God said, I'm going to do this to you to test you. He never says I'm going to do it to bless you. He says, I'm going to give you manhu to test you, to put you through the ringer, to see whether or not you'll listen to me.
I thought it was also to see if they give up control and trust him.
I don't know. He says, I'm going to test you to see if you'll listen to me. That's what he says. I'm going to give it to you to test you to see whether you'll listen to me. How about this? Somebody comes into Israel, they do a miracle. A miracle. They wave their hand over and all this food gets produced and shows up. And then this person says, guys, all you got to do is do this incantation, this prayer. Like, you got to put the letters in a certain form, though. You got to do it exactly like this. Okay. And somebody tries it, and poof! Magic happens for them. And they get a blessing. God says in Deuteronomy, in our Torah portion this week, I will send somebody to do miracles to see whether or not you'll follow my ways. miracles. And he says, if they don't tell you to follow the Torah, kill them. Yeah, but this guy taught me how to be blessed. He taught me how to make a mint. Kill him. Because he didn't turn you to Torah. Pretty rough. Pretty harsh stuff. Right? So there is a warning here that if you choose to listen and if you choose to get to know God closely, things are not going to go well. And that's okay. I'm saying this from personal experience. And it's okay.
We need to redefine bad and well.
Yeah, we got to redefine good and bad. That's exactly right. But you have to do that. I've redefined it for me. My good is the blessing to get to know God. The blessing if you listen to me. So here's this guy who's the friend of God, knew God. God talked to him about all the heavenly things, which means he got the blessing, which means he had to have done what?
Mitzvot, listen.
Done the mitzvot and then listen to it. And that's what it says in Genesis 25. Before you read that top thing, just read Genesis 25. I will multiply Isaac's seed as the stars of heaven and will give them all these lands because Abraham listened to my voice, Shema Abraham Bekoli, observe my watches, Vayishmar Mishmarti, my mitzvot, my commandments, my statutes, and my Torot. Did Abraham do Judaism? All of it. Every bit of it. And then once he did it, he listened to it preached to him. And once he listened to it preached to him, what happened? What did he get? What did he get? Say it out loud. Let's do it again. Did he do Judaism?
Yes.
All of it. After he did it, what did he do? Listen. Don't just say listen. Listen to it. Listen to it. After he listened to it, he got the blessing. Ha bracha. Not bracha, a blessing. Ha bracha, the blessing. With the definite article the. I'm glad you asked me how you say the blessing in Hebrew. Because it says the blessing. The other ones don't. They just say, you'll be blessed with this, you'll be blessed with that. But this is the blessing. All right, let's just do it one more time. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. All right. Did Abraham do the Torah?
Yes.
Without looking, do not look at the screen, do not look at your notes. What's the verse that says he did the blessing, that he did the Torah?
Genesis 9 something.
No, close. You forgot already?
It's in Isaiah somewhere.
Oh my goodness. Right here.
Oh,
Read it.
Genesis 25.
Genesis 25. It says in Genesis 25 he did Judaism, yes?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
At least shake your head or something. Okay, he did the Torah. After he did the Torah, what did he do?
He listened to it.
Listen to it. All right? And after he listened to it, what did he get?
He got
The blessing. And what is the blessing? To know, the knowledge of God. To know God. Leda'at et Adonai. To know God. Now, look at what the Berean Society, which is a Christian organization, says. Although the Israelites and Jews came from Father Abraham, strictly speaking, Abraham was neither an Israelite nor a Jew. That's correct. Abraham was not under the law. The law was given 430 years after the call of Avram.
All true.
All false.
Huh?
No, because it was from the beginning.
Did Abraham do the Torah?
Yes.
Okay. What they're trying to say by using the phrase under the law was that means he didn't do it. That's what they mean. He didn't do it. Abraham didn't do the law. Is that correct?
No.
No, that's false. The law was given 430 years after the call of Avram, which is true, but he did the Torah 430 years before it was given.
It's not 25:6.
It's not 25:6, it's 26:5. I'm sorry, I forgot to change it. Thank you, Doug. Genesis 26:5.
Yeah, it is.
Right, I forgot to switch it. All right. Did you follow all that?
It's 26:5.
Did you follow all that process of Abraham did the Torah? After he did it, he listened to it. When he listened to it, he got the blessing, which is the knowledge of God, which is why he's called the friend of God. Now, if you want to shoot for that, shoot for that. If you don't, it's up to you. It's up to all of us. Again, Israel's getting ready to go into the land, right? Right? This Torah portion, this week, they're getting ready to go into the land. And so he gives them more than 200 mitzvot from this Torah portion to the end of Devarim. More than 200 mitzvot. Crams them all in that one little space. So he starts really laying them on now. Why? Because they're getting ready to go in the land. Last week's Torah portion said this: "You shall therefore take these words of mine to heart and to soul. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand. They shall be for frontlets between your eyes. You shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk in the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall put them upon as a sign upon your hand and as bands between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and in your gates, so that your days and the days of your sons may be increased." Where? Where? On the land, which the Lord swore to your fathers to give them. And we say, yeah, it's the kingdom. And here's a hint, a clue in the passage that tells us it's the kingdom. As long as the heavens are above the earth. He's telling them they're going to go into the land as long as the heavens are above the earth. Were they in the land for 2,000 years? Like after Yeshua?
I
No.
don't think so.
So this is a lie.
It's a picture.
It's a picture. Right. It's a picture. Either it's a picture or it's a lie. You can't have it both ways. God says, I'm going to take you Jews, put you in the land, as long as the heavens are above the earth. Are the heavens still above the earth? Yes. Were they out of the land for almost 2,000 years? So this is a lie. Or it's a picture. It's a picture of the kingdom. As long as the heavens are above the earth, that's the kingdom. So there's a hint here that it's talking about the kingdom. I'm not going to go through all this, but you should know this passage backwards and forwards. Everybody who's heard me teach, you should know this passage backwards and forwards. Hebrews 3 through Hebrews 4. And it says over and over and over and over, 4 times, "If you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts, as when they provoked me on the day of trial in the wilderness, where your fathers put me to the test and saw my works 40 years. So I was angry with this generation and swore in my anger, they shall not enter my rest." And then he repeats it and repeats it and repeats it and repeats it. And then down in this weird part, down on after number 3, "They certainly shall not enter my rest, although his works were finished from the foundation of the world," which makes no sense to the passage, except that he's talking about, "For he has said concerning the 7th day." So now he calls the rest 7th day, and then he calls it a certain day, and then he calls it rest again, and rest again, and rest again, and then he calls it, it's all the way on this line, all the way over on the right, Sabbath. Okay, you should know this passage. He says over and over and over that the land is not the land. It's the day of rest. It's the Sabbath. It's the 7th day. And then this part that's underlined. For if Joshua, Yeshua is interchangeable with Joshua, Yehoshua in Hebrew, had given them rest. Given who rest?
Israel.
Right. Israel in the wilderness. Don't leave me. Stay with me. So when I ask you a question, answer. Stay with me. Answer out loud. If Joshua, Yeshua, Yehoshua had given them rest, given Israel in the wilderness rest, he would not have spoken of another day. All right. So we know for sure that they weren't just going into Israel, they were going into...
Kingdom.
How did the Torah portion start? What word?
To see.
Right. Re'eh. See. See. If you listen to the mitzvot, you get the blessing. If you don't listen to the mitzvot, you get the curse. Why? Because you're getting ready to go into the land. Look. And so he's telling them over and over and over again. Do this when you go in the land. Do this when you go in the land. Do this when you go in the land. And listen to it. And it will tell you about your father. Deuteronomy 12. Back to our Torah portion. Now I'm going to put the two together. You shall not do at all in the kingdom. You shall not do at all what we're doing here today. Everyone doing what's upright in his own eyes. Now what he's saying is, when you go into the land, do not do what we're doing here today. Everybody doing whatever they want.
Right.
You know, whatever's right, upright in their own eyes. What are they getting ready to go into?
Kingdom.
The kingdom. So you can read it like that. You shall not do at all in the kingdom what we're doing here today. Everybody doing whatever is upright in his own eyes. Now Judges 21, it's the very, very last verse of Judges, says this. There was no king in the land, and everyone did exactly what it says here. What was right, upright in their own eyes. So did they do the mitzvot?
No.
Did they listen to the mitzvot?
Absolutely not.
Negatory. For you have not as yet come. Now look what he says. Because you haven't yet come to what? To what?
Shabbat.
The resting place. Menucha. What is that?
Kingdom.
He's telling them the kingdom. You haven't yet come to the kingdom and the inheritance which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. The Lord your God is giving you when you cross the Yarden and live in the kingdom, which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, and he gives you heniach, rest. There it is again. This is what the writer of Hebrews is quoting. This is what he's quoting. He's not just quoting that verse that says, they wouldn't listen to me in the wilderness, even though, I gave them the word, I gave them the Besorah, the gospel, which it says. They wouldn't listen to me, so they didn't enter my rest. He's also quoting this, because he calls it, you're about to go into the land, and you haven't yet come to Menucha, the inheritance, the land, rest. He's going to give you rest from all your enemies around you so that you live in security. Then it shall come about that the place in which the Lord your God will choose for his name to dwell, where's that?
Jerusalem.
Where?
The temple.
Where? Thank you, Becca. In the kingdom. It's the kingdom. That's where? In the kingdom. Because that's what he's talking about here. You're about to go into the land. Look. Open your eyes. Listen to the mitzvot that you do in the land. And it's going to talk to you all about spiritual stuff. It's going to talk to you about the kingdom. You're about to go into it. Open your eyes. You're going to see it. But only if you listen to the mitzvot. Is this too much? Did you get lost? Did you get lost? No? Okay. All right. Now he says, when you go into the land, this is what I want you to do. At the place, Hamakom, that the Lord is going to choose from all your tribes to put his name, in the kingdom. You shall bring everything that I set up for you. Your burnt offerings, your olot, your sacrifices, zevachim, your tithes, maaser, your lifted up things, terumah, and all your nederim, your vows. That's animals to eat. Where is this to be done?
Kingdom.
Where is this to be done?
Kingdom.
In the kingdom. Okay. So even before they go into the land, God is already telling them there's going to be sacrifices in the kingdom. Even before they go in to the land, we learn that there's going to be sacrifices in the kingdom. You understand what I'm saying? Christ did away with the law. The collision of worlds. Christ did away with the law. Then why is there sacrifices in the kingdom?
Right?
They'll argue that too, though.
Yeah, but it's a merry-go-round. Believe me, I've done this many times. Of course they'll argue that. But their argument will go in a circle, and it will never get anywhere. It will never get anywhere. If you start from the basis of Christ did away with the law, it can only go in a circle. It cannot go anywhere. But if you start from the basis of Judaism what is the purpose of Judaism?
No God.
What's the purpose of Judaism? Shadows, pictures. What's the purpose of Judaism? Pictures. Okay. And you do the thing, and it teaches you about spiritual stuff as a picture. All right, so in the kingdom, the day of rest, the inheritance, the land, that's the kingdom, you are to do olot, burnt offerings, sacrifices, tithes, lifted up things, terumah, and vows. That's animals. And all this is to be eaten except for the olah, the burnt offering, which you shall vow to the Lord. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God. That means eating. Eat all those animals. But look who it says eats with you. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your sons and your daughters and your male and female slaves or servants. That's both Jews and Gentiles. And the Levite who is within your gate. So therefore, skip that last part. We know there's going to be sacrifices in the kingdom. So, go down to the bottom. Should we seek the blessing?
No.
Yes, no. Yeah, I set you up for a double answer. All right, so let me qualify what I mean by this. Should we seek the blessing as most people define blessing?
No.
No. We should seek the blessing, which is what? The knowledge of God. And all the other little blessings will come in its wake. I used to say to Messianic Jews, if you'll just do Judaism and learn from it, like let it be a picture to you, all the other stuff will come as side benefits. Oh, you are really lowering the level of God's blessings.
What?
They're blessings from God. And you would just call them side benefits? That's what they say. And I had this argument, I don't know, minimum of 40 times with Messianic Jews. And I would just keep telling them. But the Judaism is there as a picture to teach you. Yes, but we need to obey the Lord. No. Judaism is there to do it as a picture to teach you. Yes, but we need to, and they would get on that merry-go-round and it never ends. It never goes anywhere. But the truth is, all that stuff is, it's all right. It's all right, but, it's side benefits. That's all. Health, money, whatever. It's all side benefits. It's nothing. It's not important. Seek first the kingdom. Finish the phrase.
And then
And all,
Other things will be added to you.
okay, here's Mr. Washer's version. And all the stuff will be added to you. That's my version. That's truth. Side benefits. Okay. Da. This is exactly the slide I ended with 4 weeks ago. This is the last slide I ended with 4 weeks ago. So we come right back to it. Say da. That means knowledge or know, to know. Le da'at, to know. Le da'at. Isaiah 43, you are my witnesses, talking to the Jews, says Yehovah, and my servant whom I've chosen, so that, I've chosen you, so that, Jews, you may know and believe me. Know me and believe me. Why did God choose the Jews? So they could know him. But listen, the only way to get to know him is how? Well, let's walk it backwards. The only way to know God is how? Let's walk it back. No, you're at the beginning. Let's walk it backwards. No, you're at the beginning. Let's walk it backwards. The only way to know God, have the blessing, is what? Listen to the mitzvot. The only way to listen to the mitzvot is do the mitzvot. So you got to go from back to front, front to back. In this case, we're starting at the end of the process. You are my witnesses and my servant whom I've chosen, God says to the Jews, so that you can know me. How did the Jews get to know God? Do the mitzvot, hear the mitzvot, talk, and get to know God, which is called the blessing. All right. So that you may know me. That's the blessing. Psalm 74. Noda bihuda Elohim. God is known in Judah. Yisrael Gadol Shemo. In Israel, God's name is great. God is known where?
Israel.
Not in Israel. Where? In Judah. God is known in Judah. It doesn't say God is known in his people. It doesn't say God is known in the Christians. It doesn't say God is known in Rome or anywhere else. It says God is known in Judah, in the Jews. Why? Because they're doing the mitzvot. Some of them listen to the mitzvot and they get to know God. Hebrews 8, quoting Jeremiah 31. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. I will do away with the Torah through Christ, so you never have to worry about the curse of the law again, ever. By my Spirit, I will speak to you in a still small voice, and you never have to do anything ever again. Now that's how Christians, and you know it's true, that's how the majority of Christians think, because that's the enculturation of our culture that causes us to think that way. For this is the covenant that I'll make. I'll put my Torah in their inner parts. See, we don't have to read the Torah. God put it in there. We don't have to do it. We don't have to read it. It's already in there. Right? Spirit of God took care of all that. He put it in. Done. All done. Yay! Don't have to do anything. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because that is, unfortunately, and I love them dearly, that is what Messianic Jews wholeheartedly believe. Wholeheartedly. God put the Torah into my spirit by his Spirit. What do I have to do it for? It's already in there. I'm a filled vessel. What do I have to do anything for? It's done. Yeshua took care of it. Right? Make sense?
That's what they say.
Believe it wholeheartedly. Yes.
But like, if he put it in your spirit, wouldn't you want to know what he put in? Make you want to know?
You're thinking logically,
Yes.
Becca. We can't do that. If he put it inside of you, wouldn't you want to know what he put inside of you? Yeah, one would think. That's exactly right. Wonderful, logical question. And that's the truth.
Can you do that?
Exactly right. And that's really what drove me to figure out pictures. It's like, okay, everybody's telling me he put this junk inside of me, this stuff. What the heck is it? What does it say? What does it sound like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What is it? I don't know anything about it. What is it? So I went and found out. That's exactly right. Then he says, I'll write it on their inward parts, write the Torah on their inward parts, and I'll write them on their hearts. And I'll be their God, and they shall be my people. Talking about Israel. And they shall not teach everybody his fellow and everyone his brother, saying, know the Lord, because they'll all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. Because he wrote the Torah on the inside. But it's our job to figure out what he wrote in there. What did he write? How come you don't know how to tithe? If he wrote it in your heart, why don't you know how? Make sense? Do you know how to do you know how to skin an animal properly for a sacrifice of shlamim, a peace offering?
No.
No,
Do you know what the pieces are to
No.
be cut? Why? He wrote it in your heart. See what I'm saying?
Good point.
Where it says heart, is that from Lakav?
Is it what?
From Lakav, L-A-K-A-V?
No.
It's a different
There's 3 words for heart in Hebrew. Me'ah, which means just a big empty space.
Lev.
Lev, which is just like, it's a normal word for heart. Lev. It's kind of like the soul. And then the third one is beten, which is actually womb, but it's also translated heart. It means a house. It means a house.
Good go.
So, if I'm going to say it again, I like things down to earth, where you just give an example. What color is techelet?
Blue.
What kind of blue?
Bluish.
What kind of blue?
Dark blue.
Give me a description of the blue.
Like a dark blue.
Turquoise. It's a little
Like your shirt.
like my shirt. Not even close.
It's a dark blue.
Dark blue. Not even close.
Snail blue. Like on the
Sky
logo
blue's
there.
Sky blue's close.
Like on
Like
the
galaxy
logo
blue?
Like the logo there? No, not even close.
Galaxy blue?
No, not galaxy blue. All right. Why don't you know if he wrote it in your heart?
there. CT blue.
Yeah, but where are you going to find tzitzit with the right blue?
Israel.
Why don't you know if it was written on your heart?
I can't.
We have to.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you have a servant that serves you for 6 years and goes out in the 7th, how much money do you give a woman?
$40.
Why don't you know? It was written on your heart.
That yet.
It was written on your heart.
That hasn't
It's in the
happened
Torah. It's in the Torah.
yet. Yeah, but it hasn't
It's
happened.
in the Torah.
He hasn't done that yet.
Because you have to look for it.
Because it may be written on your heart, but that doesn't mean you know it. You got to learn it. You got to
Those
be
days
taught
haven't
it.
happened yet.
No, you need to do it now. You need to learn it now. Because all of them are pictures.
Yeah, but it's not.
You got to get off the merry-go-round of, he wrote it in my heart, so it's there, so I'm good. You're not good. You're not. You need to learn the Torah in order to hear the Torah. You got to learn it, then do it, then it talks to you, but it ain't going to happen if you don't know how to do it. Make sense? That's what the job of a rabbi is, to teach you how to do it. Then you do it, and after you do it, what happens?
You listen to it.
Okay, let's do it again. Your rabbi teaches you how to do it, and you do it, and then what happens?
You listen to it.
Listen to what?
The mitzvot.
Okay, nobody said it talks.
What?
Okay, listen to the question. I'm being very specific. Your rabbi teaches you how to do the thing, whatever it is, and you do it, and then what happens?
It speaks.
It speaks to you, and then what do?
You listen to
You
it.
listen to it, and then because you've listened to it, what happens?
You get to know
You
God.
get the blessing. And what is the blessing?
You get from God.
It's a lot of questions, but you got to go through each step. You got to. Or else it mushes all together into a big mush of nothing. You must parse it out carefully. Or else you cannot follow this train. And you're going to get back on that merry-go-round, and around and around and around you're going to go. Okay? I know I've been hard on you today. All right, I'm sorry, sort of. But this is how you learn, by repetition. Okay, now we got to pray. Abba, I ask that you'd help us to learn how to pray. How to pray. How to pray about stuff we're supposed to pray about, not just us, but how to pray to you and hear you about you through the mitzvot. I want to know about you. I want to know about heaven. I want to know about the angels and the demons and what you're doing and the spiritual realm. I want to know you. I don't want to know about me. I mean, I'm boring. My life is boring. I want to know you. And I ask that you teach us, train us, how to hear you about you. And I ask that you would train us how to move closer to, getting to know you. La da'at Adonai. How, getting to know you. And becoming closer to being somebody you can talk to and you can hang out with and you can have a good time with instead of it being so hard for you. I thank you for your patience and your kindness, that you show chen, chesed, and rachamim, grace, kindness, compassion, grace and mercy and compassion to us. I ask, Father, that you would add to this congregation and add to those who want to know Judaism as pictures. In the name of Yeshua. Thank you, Abba. Let's do Kiddush.